We're ready to go. I'm having a chat with concert saxophonist Jeffrey Heisler about your 2021 AMP recording, uh, Vent, it's called, with pianist Ichenye, marimbist, wow, Jonathan Oval, and alto saxophonist Matthew Younglove. And this is an incredibly entertaining CD, as I told you before we recorded, and I mean that in the most positive ways because lots of musicians are out there watching our interview, and maybe I'll put up all the information to get a hold of the CD up at
Yeah.
performingartsinterview.net site. But
Great.
this is just a beauty, and I have lots of sax players, by the way. I think we mentioned a little earlier, Jeffrey. Do I call you Jeffrey? Can I go to
Yep.
Jeff? Jeff or
Either
Jeffrey?
either way, I go by
Okay, because
anything.
I'm a Dan Daniel, and I know it's a sensitive issue. But
Yeah.
let's do Jeff now that I've introduced you formally as
Great.
Jeffrey. What I'm getting at is that I've been interviewing a lot of saxophonists. So in terms classical, concert saxophonists
Yeah.
over the past couple 3 years. So in others, the repertoire is growing. The transcriptions, which are which is your territory, and
Yeah.
arrangements we're going to talk about, is growing, and just the interest. So you and I talked a little bit. Apparently, most of this fabulous repertoire on this CD, Vent, is pretty well known amongst the clan, if you will, the
Yes.
saxophone clan.
Yeah.
Jennifer Higdon, Dash, William Bolcom. I mean, we all know the composers. Graceful Ghost Rag, David Lang's Vent, Ellen Zwillick Episodes, two charming movements.
Yeah.
Bill Ryan, maybe, I don't know, born in 1968. He's a baby. Simple Minds, and then Mark Mellett's as the grand finale on this CD. We will spend time on Mark Mellett's piece, Tight Sweater, because it's a dandy. And what I mean by entertaining, what I mentioned a bit earlier, is now I'm an old guy, okay? And I was dancing. I was ready to get up and jive and shivvy or whatever the words are. And
Yeah.
that's a huge compliment. See what I mean?
Oh,
I'm
thank
not
you.
being silly at all. It's like when music grabs you and makes you want to jump out of your seat and dance, you got a winner. So I just want to say, this is a beauty.
Beautiful.
Man, let's kind of introduce you a little bit,
Okay.
a little bit better. Saxophonist and professor, if I may say so, right at this moment. Jeffrey Heisler, award-winning saxophonist, pedagogue, and soprano, chair of the Assembly Quartet. Why don't we just stop there for a second? I looked the website up for Assembly Quartet. Give me a little overview, because I think you were one of the founders, or what?
Well, I started with Assembly Quartet right after I graduated with my doctorate degree. During a student, had a lot of success as a chamber musician, winning prizes at Fishoff and Coleman and MTNA and those international and national chamber music competitions. But during my doctorate specifically, I had no outlet for chamber music, and so that was something I really wanted to seek at the time. And there was a group of friends that I had that were in the Assembly Quartet, and their soprano saxophonist was moving to a different career path. The Assembly Quartet was also very successful in the early 2000s as a student quartet out of the University of South Carolina. And so once they all graduated, they started to work professionally, and they did a national search for a soprano saxophonist. I applied and was able to win that position. And since we've recorded 3 CDs, and we're doing a couple. We have a couple new albums in the can currently. Pandemic has made us very creative in other ways, and so we have a CD that is another one of my creations. It's 3 transcriptions for saxophone, quartet, and piano. So these quintets, we have a CD coming out with that for the Assembly Quartet. And then we're also we're all educators and we understand that the need for saxophone quartetting, if that's a verb, to happen with younger students in order to continue to move the repertoire and the technical demands and the musicianship forward. So we started this project that we're really excited about called the Pedagogy Project. And so we've commissioned composers all around the country to write for pre-college and emerging saxophone quartets. And we're putting together this project for so younger quartets, but original music for the saxophone. And we're really excited about that, to get that out to all the band directors and young saxophonists and around the world.
Well, that's why I was so excited and wanted to bring it up because I saw on your website this idea of residency, doing residencies for all those wonderful reasons you just described. So it's a wonderful service. I wanted to make sure we got that. We got to plug it anyway. And I'll put up the website at Performing Arts Review too.
Thank you.
Let's see now. We mentioned, what did we mention yet? Maybe not, that you're on the faculty of Oakland University, Rochester, Michigan. Associate Professor of Saxophone. Did we get to go through that? You got your doctorate in musical arts from Bowling Green State University, in the contemporary music program, and that was something about you were the first ever, or something like that?
Yeah, I was the first graduate of that program in 2012 or 2010 actually, and it's a wonderful program. Bowling Green in Ohio is really well known for their new music program. The composers and the new music musicians are outstanding. My mentor, John Sampin, is world renowned as a contemporary saxophonist. And so it was just a wonderful place to hone these skills and to grow as musicians and to, especially for saxophone, it's a fertile ground for just amazing saxophone playing.
Still, I'm thinking Midwest bands.
Absolutely.
You know, there are no bands most anywhere else anymore, but in the Midwest, there are still these huge. I conducted a huge wind ensemble in Seattle for many years, so I love the wind. You know, the so-called wind orchestra repertoire. Now, okay, it's time. A little bit of backstory. First of all, where were you born? Dare I ask? And was it somewhere in the Midwest?
It was. I'm Midwestern bred and born, from Detroit, Michigan, and I did my studies at a young age just outside of the city in a place called Warren, Michigan. Went to high school. Then I studied at Central Michigan University with a wonderful saxophonist, John Nickel, and I became a band director and
I haven't read that.
Yeah. And so I taught band for a couple of years at Bay City, Michigan, home to Madonna, if that's the thing. And then,
by the way, good for Madonna. Small town girl.
Yeah. And so we, after a couple of years of band directing, I really wanted to try my hand at higher ed, and I got a master's degree in saxophone performance, in addition with a cognate in wind conducting, to continue that subset. I did that degree at Bowling Green to study with John Sampin, and I stayed on for this brand new program that we mentioned in saxophone performance and contemporary music. And after that, I started a position at Kent State University in Ohio as a young professor in both saxophone and wind band. So I was a wind band conductor as well as teaching saxophone. And about 4 or 5 years after that position, I moved back to Michigan, where I currently am at Oakland University, where I built a wonderful saxophone studio and
Are you conducting? Are you doing any wind conducting?
Not anymore. I am solely a saxophone professor, and I love conducting. I love making music, but this is really where I put all my energy at the moment.
But we still haven't answered the main question. I'm seeing the rolling flats of the Midwest. I'm seeing small towns. I'm seeing all of that. We've heard all the sort of academic education, but who put a saxophone in your face, and when did that happen? Were you 8? Were you 10? What?
Well, I started on clarinet.
Me
My
too. Hated it.
Yeah, my father was a trumpet player, so I kind of was playing more trumpet than clarinet at the very beginning. But in band, I was playing clarinet and I was studying clarinet seriously. And this was right when The Simpsons started, and seeing Lisa Simpson with a saxophone inspired me to. I want to play that, and it was
The influence of propaganda. It's terrible,
yeah.
terrible.
And
Anyway,
and so at the time, my middle school band director was a saxophonist, and also my high school band director was a saxophonist. So I had so much support there, and yeah, it just kind of started the monster rolling from there.
and as we'll discuss when we speak about these pieces in a bit more detail, uh, some of the works here are your own realizations and adaptations
Hmm?
for saxophone. And I mean, we kind of have danced that dance earlier about the paucity of repertoire, although it's growing and growing. Look at Higdon.
Absolutely, yeah.
Was that a transcription, her piece, or was that written specifically for saxophone and saxophone?
What piece was that?
The Higdon Dash. That was for,
That's also a transcription, but composer done. The other works on the album I've transcribed for the saxophone. That one specifically, we asked Jennifer Higdon for a version. It's originally flute, clarinet, piano, and she has done maybe 5 or 6 different permutations of instrumentation of that work. And Jennifer Higdon's also a Bowling Green grad, so we have a connection there. And I just asked her,
I had
hey,
no
could
idea,
we,
by the way.
yeah, could we do Dash for 2 saxophones? And she's like, I love it. Here, give me a couple weeks, and I'll get you something. And it was great.
Well, so anyway, we're going to discuss a lot of some of the decisions you made and why. But thanks for clarifying that this is Jennifer Higdon's own arrangement.
Correct.
The
Yes.
soprano sax, alto sax, and piano. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Let me just run down in a little bit. William Bolcom, we're going to spend some time there. Graceful Ghost Rag for the reasons of how this piece is executed by your pianist, your wife,
Yes.
and yourself. This is a realization that you put together, yeah?
Absolutely,
yeah?
yes.
And
Yep.
we're going to look at David Lang's Vent, as we've kind of, again, touched on a couple times, just because it's so fascinating. And I suppose it should be pronounced vin, because wind in French, vin.
Absolutely, absolutely. But
of course,
I mean,
everybody pronounces it vent. Come on.
Yeah, well, that's the American ism in us. But I also chose the title of the album, because that piece is, was central to the work and the project itself. But because of all the multiple meanings of that word, I thought it was so apropos. The French meaning, a wind. It's a transporter. The also vent as if a strong emotional, statement that you're saying, and a lot of the music is highly rhythmically charged, and
like the entire CD, for example.
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
It pumps and pumps and pumps and
Yeah.
pumps. That's a huge, huge compliment. There is not a dull moment.
Well, thank
Yeah,
you.
you
Yeah.
Anyway, Vent we'll talk about, and then I'll into other episodes for soprano and so forth. Let's. I don't know where we want to begin. I guess we might as well begin at the beginning. And sometimes I do this, which is that just to kind of talk through the pieces, because as you probably know, I spend the day with the CD. I barely had a chance to hear it twice. First I heard it while I was taking notes, and then I heard it the second time. And as you know, I might as well have started over again. You know what I mean? The revelations that come out just on a second listening. But let's begin with Jennifer Higdon's Dash for soprano saxophone, alto sax, and piano. Again, highly energized, fun from the get-go, but very difficult, it sounded to me. Let's. I'm not patting you on the back. I'm just saying, how tough was it to put this piece together? It's a tough one.
Well, it's a dash, right? But the music, the way she writes, it works. It just fits together so well. I think it's very idiomatic, even though it wasn't written for saxophone. There's nothing in it that really becomes a barrier for performance, and I think that's why it's getting a lot of play. It's also short in duration. It's great for an opener or closer. It fits a lot of the things that we as musicians really, take for granted, I guess, or we really enjoy these things. So, um, yeah, for that reasons, I think that it's really successful. This is one of her most often played chamber works. She's really well known for her really large scale pieces, and prize winner of everything on earth, basically. But she's just a wonderful human, and is very, very supportive of the saxophone. She's written a fair amount of original things for saxophone, and this just seemed to fit. And she was really happy to do this. We During the pandemic, I told her, "Hey, we're in the recording studio doing recording this," and she's like, "Oh, great! Send me when this is done." And I sent her and she just writes back like, "Holy cow! This is amazing!" And yeah, she was very happy with the results of this her arrangement of this work. And yeah, it also just fit the theme of the album itself. Just works that are being transformed into saxophone language.
Yeah. It's tricky. It's clever. Very exciting rhythmically. It's just a whole lot of fun. No way around dancing in the aisles to do this one. I mean, that's the. I've known percussionists over the years, and they have it exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
They have it exactly right. You got to keep things dancing to keep attention. And sure enough, Dash is that. And she does make a comment, I think, in the program note about that. Dash exactly describes. I hope I call it the plague. I hope the plague slowed us down a little bit, so that meditate a bit. You mentioned about, I've heard this, of course, over and over again. Lots of musicians it's like, oh, well, what are we going to do? And we're locked up. And oh, well, let's create a new CD or let's do this. And meanwhile, Kepl is just staring out the window in disbelief, wondering what happened to the world for 6 months. So I envy all of your creative energy going on even through that period.
Okay. Right. I just find creative people will do creative things no matter what circumstance comes up, So
thank you. That leaves me out of it. Apparently.
Not at all.
Anyway, excuse me. Couldn't resist that. Now let's spend a little time on William Bolcom. This is Graceful Ghost Rag, and as mentioned in the notes, he apparently correct me here, straighten me up, but there are something like 24 versions for different instruments of this rag, right? He walked into this, whatever the tune is.
He found a hit, right? And
okay, there you go.
Yeah, but it comes from his piano rags, so for solo piano, and it's one of those that it just touches the heartstrings. It was written for as an homage to his father, who recently passed away during the composition of his piano rags. So the Graceful Ghost is his dad, and I think it's something that everyone identifies with. It's just beautiful music, and in a popular Americana style, which he's also extremely well known for. So I think it just hits all of the DNA that we adore William Bolcom's music, for.
Yeah, and actually, you really did pin it down nice. Before I forget, I want to congratulate your wife, Chen, because man, as I mentioned to you before we take, first of all, what's so glorious is, and we spoke about this before taping, the first recordings on Nunsuch
Mhm.
of
Yeah.
rags of Joplin rags were
Uh-huh.
I can't remember who the pianist was. I think he was a composer, conductor, or something. I can't remember. But anywho, they were done in this kind of almost melancholic
Mhm.
manner. And to me, that especially in this Vulcan piece and the way your wife plays it, her approach
Uh,
to cadence, and we
yeah.
talk, and this elegant rubato, and it just and to me it's all of that. There's something heartbreaking. There's almost something
Mhm.
I want to say spiritual in this music, Scott Joplin-esque. If you get
Yeah.
my drift, there's something. There's yeah. Go ahead if you have more
Well,
information.
I just got to share a little story. When we recorded that piece, we just finished, and the recording engineer on this album is Mark Buntz. He's from Bowling Green, Ohio, and fantastic. And we get done with the recording session, and we're just listening back to a couple takes, and he plays the very beginning of the Bolcom. He's like, check this out, and Echen lays that down just so beautifully and hauntingly beautiful, and uh, and I just look at Mark. I'm like, yeah, she's just way better than I am, and then he goes, yep, and she did that in one take.
Yeah, it's her playing is just gorgeous throughout the CD, but here
Yeah.
in particular, just a superb understanding of everything we've spoken about. This sort of bittersweet, uh, charming. It evokes an entire era,
Hmm.
late 19th, early 20th century in America. I mean, it's just Americana
Right.
forever, and it's lovely as well. So this really and it catches the spirit of history I'm
Hmm.
writing down here. Um, and then there's these. I presume, can we describe them as sort of variations on? How would you describe the structure of
Yeah.
the piece?
So this version is actually transcribed from a version that Bolcom did for violin and piano. So it's in a different key, has slightly different form. It's more of a concert variation rather than the way that he originally um, presented the piano rag. So it's expanded out a little bit more to give some room for interplay between two voices, and yeah, it just works really well with the violin, and I thought it would work beautifully with soprano saxophone. So we corresponded back and forth about some small changes to the transcription over a couple years, and finally settled on what we recorded.
Okay, and using this piece, let's hang with Volcom just a little bit
Mm-hmm.
longer, Ghost Drive, because let's talk about the quality of soprano saxophone and the reason. I'm going to let you deal with it, but
Mm-hmm.
nothing was more touching somehow
Mm-hmm.
to hear this rag, and then to hear that high soprano saxophone color. It just was
Yeah.
like boom, that's it. You know what I'm trying to describe?
Yeah, I think that
As opposed
it
to violin
for
is what I'm getting at.
right. It's
Even more appropriate.
well, soprano sax. I think all the saxophones. This is what I love about it. They're chameleons. They're capable of such a wide timbral color palette that yeah, you can get that really sweet and transparency in the soprano saxophone that it's just organic to to what the instrument can provide, and but it can be really raucous and screaming. It can give you everything in between. It's such a flexible sound that I just enjoy kind of being an artist and trying to paint with colors.
And we talked a little earlier, but you know what? Either I'm about to review this piece because there's a William Bolcom horn trio coming up,
Hmm. Yeah.
new CD, and I'll bet you, I've forgotten the name now, Philip, I've forgotten his last name, violinist. I have a feeling that's either I've heard him play it before for fiddle and piano,
Yeah.
or it's going to be on this new CD. So thank you
Right.
for giving me a whole new, my ears are full of soprano saxophone at the moment. It's
Oh,
going to be
okay.
very interesting if that moment comes up, which I think it's going to here soon. And
That's
speaking
fantastic.
of squealing and shrieking, I'm pretty sure we can refer to David Lang at this point. Vent.
So, some moments,
Or should I
yes.
say vin? I'm sorry, I should have said vin so I could show my extreme French, all 7 words of it.
Uh-huh.
Wind in French, so pronounced.
Right.
Composed first for flute and piano, and this is another instance where I have a funny feeling that soprano sax is the better uh, c- color. I think
Yes.
you've
Right.
really kind of rewritten the encyclopedia here. So tell me about David Lang's Vin.
Well, he's really excited about this transcription, and it's probably one of the newest transcriptions that we are dealing with on this album.
2017. Yeah,
Yeah,
adapted for
and
Beck 2017.
yeah, and it translates really well. And some of the things that, especially in live performance, the soprano saxophone can bite a little bit more in certain registers and match the intensity of the piano writing, so that you can really feel those colors, the tension that he's building in the harmonic spectrum in the colors. I think you can feel that a little bit more with the soprano saxophone version of this. Uh, the changes that we made, we had to change the key down a step,
Hmm.
just because it gets so high, it could be extraordinarily difficult just to even execute on saxophone. So we basically just had to bring it down a step to make it human playable. So it's difficult, but I think really a rewarding experience. It's like an aural experience. I like to call that piece. The writing is from his early time period. It's very minimalistic and percussive, and the instrument, the piano, is much more played like a percussion instrument.
And by the way, the
Uh,
sax, the soprano sax matches that kind of pointillist,
yeah,
as per what you said.
yeah.
Because the more
So
I'm
the
looking at it,
articulations,
originally for flute and piano, I just can't
right?
hear it. Somehow, I'm
Yeah,
much happier with the soprano sax piercing color. Anyway,
yeah.
yeah.
And it's
Well, and then there's that
it,
lower register section.
mhm.
How low is that on soprano sax?
Well, it goes down to low C's, so it does get low, and that's where I'm saying that register really starts to carry some sonic weight, which I think it really matches in the flute. It's almost like you can play as loud as you can, and the sound doesn't quite have the beefiness, the the little bit of raw energy. I think the lower saxophone gives,
That's right.
especially in soprano.
Frankly,
Um,
that's right.
yeah,
I agree with you
yeah,
completely.
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Although I'll have to apologize and say I have not heard David Lang
Yeah. The
in the original. So. But I
yeah.
love what you've done here. That's what I'm getting at the whole CD.
Mhm.
Your arrangements and transcriptions are all so sensible. And
Mhm.
as we just finished discussing a little bit, there's a quality of sound that's obviously quite different and very, very satisfying so far. So
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
a fan of
Thank
your
you.
transcriptions at the moment. Okay.
That's been a huge part of I guess my interest in career research, creative activity at the moment. Just creating repertoire for the instrument. Our saxophone repertoire is growing immensely, and original works are off the charts, incredible. And we're having the best of the best composers in the world write for our instrument. We're really grateful. I'm just finding more and more ways to say something with our repertoire, and to continue to build that and continue to create relationships with composers. And I think some of these pieces, that's really been the byproduct is to create a relationship with a composer, asking if perhaps they would consider a transcription or an arrangement of an existing work, and usually they're really happy to hear what's happening, and I kind of like I'm the saxophone's such a flexible instrument. I really love to kind of see where it can go and to put us in these situations that perhaps other repertoire doesn't have. So I really enjoy this process, and I've done a lot of arranging, and not all are work, but this project is what I think. All these pieces work so well for the instrument; they really feel organic.
Are you done? Okay, because I'm going to
Yeah.
add my two bits, which
Yeah.
is that you have helped me just now to understand what the magic is about this CD and your transcriptions and whatever adaptation is.
Yeah.
They're very, very, very intelligent. In other words, what I'm getting at is not so much your process, but your mind in hearing what
Hmm.
could work. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
As opposed to, it's not like, oh, we got to fill up the repertoire. Okay, let's transcribe Bizet, something, something, or this or that. No, no, it's like
Yeah.
you were actually, and this is your life. I have a funny feeling from what you've been
Yes.
telling me, is to
Absolutely.
seek out, excuse me, to seek out repertoire that that you look at very carefully and it works.
Hmm.
Excuse me, and the real bonus here is that so far most of it works.
Yeah.
Is any living composer listening better than? You know what I mean? In terms of the colors, the penetration of sound, all that good
Yeah.
stuff. And of course,
Yeah.
they're perfectly thrilled with it too. Yeah. So that's really
Absolutely.
what because soprano sax is kind of tricky, I guess, in my
Very.
limited
Yeah.
past experience. And what I mean by tricky is it is a color that's it's kind of it either fits or it doesn't or something like that. And here it fit. And I'm thinking of the rag, how poignantly your your understanding that this would work. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
I can hardly imagine hearing the Balkan, for example, with fiddle and piano anymore. I'm sure it's lovely, and I'll hear it again. I have a funny feeling,
Yeah.
but you see what I mean? That's my compliment.
Right.
Okay, David,
Thank you
I
so much.
we dealt with. Let's look at Ellen Zwick.
Hmm.
Episodes for soprano, sax, and piano. 2004, she composed it, and then you arranged. Oh, no, she arranged it, huh?
Hmm.
For soprano sax in 2007. Originally, again,
Yes.
for violin and piano. So go ahead. It's two little movements on Arioso,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
and
So
uh, and by the way, you played the world premiere. Yeah,
I did.
of
Yes.
the
So
Arioso and then a
I heard.
Vivace or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So in 2005, I really started to get this. I guess what my process is off the ground, and episodes was the first piece that I approached a composer, asking if we could create a transcription or arrangement of a piece of music. And at the time, Ellen Zwillig had not written a solo piece for saxophone, and I I heard a recording on television. I think it was PBS. Was where Itzhak Perlman played this as far as like Kennedy at the Kennedy Center as an honors concert. And I heard that piece, and I said, yeah, maybe this could work as a saxophone piece. And I specifically was trying to seek
Sorry
out
about
some composers that haven't written an original work for saxophone yet, and to ask them if they would consider this as to build a relationship there. And so we heard this two movement concertant, and I was desperately trying uh, to find a contact to Ellen Zwillig, and lo and behold, I was asking our at Bowling Green, the orchestra director was Emily Freeman Brown, whose husband is Samuel Adler, the huge American composer, and
Hmm.
he wrote back and says, "Here's Ellen's home address, and write her a letter. She doesn't do email." And
Interesting.
so I wrote her this letter, and she writes a letter back in a couple weeks later saying, I something to the effect of, I can't imagine my fiddle piece working for the saxophone, but if you want to create an arrangement, I would be happy to consider it. And so I did, and I made a recording and sent it to her, and um it wasn't more than 2 or 3 days after she received it that I get a call on my phone from a number I didn't recognize, and it's, hi, this is Ellen Zwillick, and I talked to you about the saxophone piece, and it was a couple months of going back and forth, and she had so many um, the changes that she wanted to do to make the piece more saxophone idiomatic, and uh, and I just loved the energy. And so she basically just created that version through this arrangement that I did. But she changed probably 60 to 70% of what I've done, because I just did a literal string transcription. She wanted to massage this a little bit. So there's some significant differences between the violin episodes and the soprano saxophone episodes. And so I did the premiere performance of that for the saxophone version, and lo and behold, on the telephone, she was asking me all these questions about, can the saxophone leap this far, and can it do these tremolos, and I was trying to answer her, and I actually played a couple things through the telephone of what's possible, and then after she sent her version of the piece to me, lo and behold, she just received a commission through Chamber Music of America to do the alto saxophone and string quartet quintet that is her. So she already knew about that commission while she was going through this and testing some waters of saxophoning through our little relationship there. And she's just such a wonderful human. And yeah, and when the album came out, I sent it to her, and she's I have it on my voicemail in my office. She called my office phone and had a beautiful message of thanks and how much she admired the performance and the entire project.
But how interesting, if I understood you correctly, that you approach her. She may be somewhere in the background there knows maybe there's a commission coming up, so she used you as a kind of guinea pig
Exactly.
in
Yes.
the process.
Yeah.
It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. And then
Yep.
dedicated this transcription to you, if I've got that.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a huge work in terms of expression and passion. That's what I've written
Yes.
down. Gorgeous, significant. The piano part is truly collaborative in its importance.
It's a duo in every sense,
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else do I have here? Thrilling passage work. This
Mhm.
is on a sax and piano. Equal partners again. So she's a
Yes.
dandy of a composer. That's now the vivace. Just I guess more of the same. I don't see anything. I'm saying this is good. With exclamation points. It's interesting. The air keypad, right? Something. What's that trick? That trick about the key, you make that sound. It's just blowing air through the horn and doing the pad, something like that.
Yeah. So to mimic a pizzicato sound, we have a technique called slap tongue, and it sounds like a key pop, but it's actually the reed being ricocheted with a little air burst, and it gives us a slight reminiscence of a pizzicato effect.
Yeah. It's just plain fun. That's what it is. It's just a fun, wonderful little color in the piece. Excuse me. And then as per the entire CD, it percolates and percolates faster, and then I just say it's a great piece. I'm talking about the Vivace second.
It's fun. It's real a blast to play, and it's getting a lot of play in the saxophone world, which is wonderful.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not really nice. Yeah, for you. You know what I'm saying? For your task and job and the mission that you're on. Bill Ryan. Simple Lines for Solo Baritone Sax with
Hmm.
pre-recorded saxophone. Is this from
Yeah.
2006? Written for Heisler originally and it was originally written for bass clarinet, so it's not so big a stretch, or is it,
Right.
to move to baritone? Yeah.
Not at all. And in fact, I'm literally playing from the bass clarinet.
Uh-huh.
So it's just a literal. It's in a different key, obviously, because of the
Sure.
transpositions from B flat to E flat. But it is the bass clarinet version. Bill also has a cello version available of the same piece, and uh, again, it's one of his probably most performed works. Um, it's very personal to him, similar to the Bolcom. It was written for his late father who passed away, and it's just a like a prayer, to and some introspective time. It's really beautiful
Tell me how it works,
writing. Yeah.
because
What?
there are other
Mhm.
saxophones, other
Yep.
electronic. How does that
So.
all work, and works in live performance, doesn't it? Yeah. So
Mhm.
it's not so
So
unusual. Go.
yes, so there's 8 pre-recorded tracks, and then there's a solo track. And so in live performance, you play with yourself the pre-recorded saxophones. So in the process, you have to record all 8 of those tracks. You start with the lowest track, which is essentially the bass line, and then you just work your way up through the score, record all that music. It's very tedious. It takes a long time to do this type of work. But once you create that background track, then you have essentially electroacoustic work with you play along with um, the you play along with
Yeah. Yeah.
your saxophone choir of yourself.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it must be a wonderful effect for an audience also. Just the piece itself
Yeah.
is so beautiful.
It's really
Um,
immersive, and I've done this piece with my saxophone ensemble, my student group, where we'll have a soloist, and then we'll have the other background parts
nice.
played live, but just immersed in the audience, so everyone kind of gets
Oh,
this hug of music, and
nice.
and I think spatially that works so well as well.
Oh, that's good. That's a fabulous idea. Wonderful. So it's very, very useful in terms of
Yeah.
programming and interest. And again, if college campuses, for example, that have saxophone choirs and studios and so on.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a wonderful kind of wake meditation, as we
Mhm.
discussed.
Yeah.
All right. Then, now I understand, from all these, whatever it's been, 5, 6 years of reviewing CDs, and I appreciate, and I'm very interested in. Uh, it's important to order the program. You
Yes.
don't just throw things around. It's weeks, blood, sweat, tears are involved in when everybody assembles a CD, because it's a big investment of time, money.
Mhm.
You have to get
Yes.
sponsorship. I see you got sponsorship and stuff like that. So I would like to salute you just on the order. I'm about to ask you what kind of order you went through, but here's what I heard. I heard, first of all, virtuosity. That's dash, which opens the
Mhm.
CD. And
Yeah.
then I heard a hoot and a half of fun, which was Tight Sweater, which ends the CD. And we're going to talk
Yeah.
about Tight Sweater, but tell me, were there moments where how long did it take you to come up with this assemblage of composers? Was
Oh,
it all?
well, as far as the order of the tracks and everything,
Yeah, did you
I
throw anything out? In others, were other works considered that you thought,
uh actually no. This
I'm
kind of
wondering.
the Bill Ryan work was the one that we recorded a couple years earlier, and we were trying to find, maybe this is the album, and because of the transcription, it really fit. But those other pieces were um, central to this idea from day one. And then all my other transcription work are from non-living composers that uh, I'm able to get published because they're out of copyright, and it's a little easier to navigate the repertoire that way. But it wouldn't have fit this specific aim of just uh, American eclecticism in a package of this music, and I just thought they all fit. I definitely wanted to get the Zwillik recorded. This is the first recording commercially available, and actually all of these works are the first for in their saxophone versions, and I just knew that I wanted to start it with Dash, and I knew the album had to end with the Mellets, and um, yeah, I think the middle, I just wanted to have good variety of flow of music, and I thought the poignancy of the homages to our fathers between Graceful Goat Rag and Simple Lines was great symmetry there, and it offset some of the really high energy work that all the other repertoire entails.
Okay, why am I not surprised? Because what I'm really getting an impression of you is a very focused, organized mind.
um,
Am I lying?
yeah, well, I just it's how I'm wired, and hopefully, just thinking as artistically as possible, as well as that. But there's a lot of irons in the fire.
Some people
with this piece.
agonize, but I mean,
Yeah,
some people that I've spoken to agonize, and this gets thrown out, and then something's brought in, and 8 months
yeah,
later, they've just. It sounds to me as though you just went, I'm going to start with this. I am going to, you made up, you had it, your head was
yeah.
settled on this stuff. Yeah.
Well,
No, right?
after my first album, Gradient, it's been like a 6 year window where that's been the runway of this repertoire to get this on an album. So yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to end this, and I'll go back and we'll do end credits. But let's talk about Mark Mellett's Tight Sweater for
Oh
baritone
man.
sax, marimba with Jonathan Oval, and piano from 2005. I think is what I see here, and piano. And you're welcome, piano. And just uh, what the hell is this? It's just so much fun. But what is exposed zipper? What is trans fatty acids, rain, and so on? The titles are just so they're not even ubiquitous. They're just like
Uh,
crazy, and so is the music
ab-
having crazy fun. Now go tell me all about this piece. You told me it's already becoming quite popular. It should because it's just
yeah. So if that is Mark Mellets in a nutshell, again, one of the coolest humans I know, and yeah, his personality type in music is all wrapped up in this package that is just bursting full of energy, and these titles are just they're attention getters basically, yeah, which and they're full of pun and innuendo, and he loves that. He's reading the ingredients in hot dogs and putting and just coming up with his mind is really running with all this creative energy, and it's just bursting with with all of his energy in the piece. So Tight Sweater comes to us as a piano trio, or not a traditional one, but so piano, marimba, and cello. And there's a new music group that what's really championed Mark Mellitz's music uh, around the turn of the 2000s, and that piano trio is called Real Quiet, and uh, and they are amazing musicians. And at the time, when I first came across Mark Mellitz's music, it was a CD of Real Quiet doing Tight Sweater, and immediately I was like, oh man, this is saxophone music. I have to get uh, uh, yeah, I have to make a relationship here, and so we so I instantly asked him if I could do a baritone saxophone, and he said something like, "Heck yeah, do it!" and at the time I was creating a chamber ensemble with my well, soon to be wife, pianist Ichenye, and also a percussionist, Isabel Wong, who we were all students, DMA students in contemporary music at Bowling Green, and we had this trio we called Primary Colors, and we were just trying to build repertoire to concertize, and this became a central focus of that work. Tight Sweater by Mark Mellitz. It Everything was really easy to translate his cello writing to baritone saxophone. There wasn't a lot of extended techniques or double triple stops or things that are kind of hard to make string translation to sax. It was pretty much like a rock concert kind of cello writing, and so I think it works really well. And frankly, in live performance, it's beautifully well balanced because the piano and the marimba can play full force without ever feeling like they're going to cover the sounds of the baritone saxophone, where sometimes cello has to be a little bit more sensitive there. So I think it works on so many levels. The music's super engaging. It's a post-minimalist funk. Everything with pop music that can be infused into classical music is
in all the best
Mark.
of ways. I mean, it's full of rhythmic vitality, lots of meter changes that just keep you kind of just slightly off your jive. And I'm so old, I'm using this stupid word, but you know what I mean. Well, and it goes on, and then these titled 10 pickle trousers. That's one of, and these are movements of about under 3 minutes each movement. It's just this cute little sweet, and it just plain moves. And have you performed it live? Have you witnessed an audience?
Yeah, dozens of times. It's always a hit, and I get the most compliments on the one slow movement in this, which is Mara's Lullaby, and that is another just gorgeous writing, and it's so disparate from the rest of it's like the heart of that work in a lot of ways. Mara is his daughter's name, and it's dedicated to his daughter. And it's just lovely music.
And also, this is minimalist, I suppose we can say, in a putting it in some kind of crazy box. But that's exactly what makes it so much fun. I love minimalism, and these repetitive figures and piano and so on, and marimba, and so on, and then with this added changing of meter, it just makes the whole thing so much fun from a performance point of view. How hard is it, come to think of it? Because it's such a beauty. Is it also a beast?
The last movement on its face doesn't look difficult, but just the way it's structured, it becomes so mentally challenging. It is written in mixed meter, but every bar is repeated at various lengths. So the first measure is four times repeat, and then it goes to a 7/16 measure that's repeated 3 times, and then it goes to a different, and so just trying to make sure that you're aware of where you are in all these repetitive forms, but and also to create that sense of line, and so the ensemble can find its goals, its musical phrasal goals together. I think it is extraordinarily difficult, and it's what makes it great art music, because it's satisfying for audience, but it's also for the musicians extremely challenging, and you learn new things about yourself as you play it. It checks all the boxes of great art.
And you were referring to the last piece, titled "Mechanically Separated Chicken Parts," and in a way you described mechanical, something the meters and the constantly changing meters. This occurred to me. Wonderful use of dynamics too, which don't, I mean, it sounds like a silly thing to say, but there's just what I mean by that is it kind of took me by surprise. This sort of diminuendo and then back up. It's just little wonderful things. The ending should have audiences jumping out of their seats. That's what I've written down, and that
It
is for sure. I
it
can hear people
drives.
just
Yeah.
whooping, and rising to
Yeah.
their feet. It's a
Yep.
so. I guess where are we? Yeah, we better end here. Let's go back to the beginning. But so just kind of in closing, uh, Jeff Heisler, thank you very very much for this wonderful CD, Vin or Vent, if you will. Wonderful works, a lot of transcriptions of your own, and again, we've already established that you've got an instinct. Yeah,
Oh, thank
you
you
got an
so much.
instinct. You can hear where crazy instruments like soprano saxophone will work perfectly. And you've mentioned baritone sax and so on, but I guess the point is that of course these are going to penetrate. These instruments will penetrate so much more effectively than violin and cello. So it's almost like a duh moment in a way. But so
Hmm.
you've just really done a great service for the repertoire for saxophones in general. But this CD is fabulous. Again, music by Jennifer Higdon. Uh, William Balcom, David Lang, Ellen Zwillick, Bill Ryan, Mark Mellett. Um, that's that's the CD that should be on the shelf of every saxophonist as she is going to look at what repertoire
Yeah.
to do, and also these are interesting transcriptions.
Thank
You
you
get
so
them?
much. I'm delighted that you're spending the time to help get this out here, and your interest and all of the kind words. It really means a lot, and yeah, thanks so much for helping promote this art.
Okay, well, believe me, it's my pleasure. And it's
Yeah.
beautifully intriguing. I'm looking at it right now. It's just really a cool looking CD.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Caught my attention for sure. Um, uh, Jeffrey Heisler, thanks very, very much for a wonderful chat. And would you please thank your fabulous wife, Uchenye
Absolutely.
Janet, and marimbist Jonathan Oval. I mean, the wonderful colors. The
Uh huh.
wonderful colors that come into play there. And alto saxophonist Matthew Younglove.
Hmm.
Really, it was just a first rate uh, bit of ensemble CD and superb repertoire. So many thanks.
Many thanks. I appreciate it so much.
See ya.